Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here. We are about a month away from the actual Oscar nominations, and at this point, I believe that we've gotten all the information necessary to compile lists of possible nominations. We've gotten our Golden Globe nominations, we've gotten our SAG Award nominations, we've had some winners from shows, we even have our Spirit Award nominations, so I believe that it is the best time to compile my 2017 Oscar nomination predictions. So this year for me has been very interesting because with the last 2 years having raised a lot of controversy within the Academy about their diversity rules, things are going to have to change this year. A lot of new people were hired within the Academy in order to make the necessary changes, and I think that's absolutely going to show in terms of the nominees and even the winners and how they're going to choose. They may be diverse, strictly for being diverse, and this is not my list of who I think should be nominated. This is my list of who I believe, knowing the Academy's previous choices and what has been happening this year and throughout the last couple of years. This is what I think the Academy will choose. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. I will say what's really cool about this year, at least thus far, is the fact of the matter that there aren't really any categories in which you have a certain 5 people really locked in. Last year that was kind of the case with Best Leading Actor. Going into the nominations, you sort of knew who was going to be nominated, and that's always unfortunate because you like having surprises. I noticed that didn't happen very much this year, except for with one category, and that for me is Best Supporting Actress. I think the majority of nominations that will be in here are going to be no surprise. I don't see anything crazy happening in this. I see basically 4 primary lock-ins. One specifically being Viola Davis for Fences. I actually have seen Fences. I got to see it in early screening. It has yet to open in wide release. And while I will admit to not being the largest fan of the film, I thought it was very good, but the first 45 minutes for me has a lot of problems. It is a very performance-driven film, especially from Denzel Washington, and the job of a supporting role and how to be the best supporting role is to, every time you are on screen, be able to absolutely steal the film. And Viola Davis does this plenty of times, and I think with the whole diversity thing going on, she's absolutely the favorite not only to be nominated but to win, and I think it's also a deserved win, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the movie. The other lock-ins I have are Naomie Harris for Moonlight. I was also able to see Moonlight, and honestly, I thought she was the best performance in that movie, maybe rivaled by some of the people that played the main character in the different stages of his life, but I thought she did a really, really great job. Like I said, stealing the show every time she was on screen. I really liked her performance, and I really like Naomie Harris. I think she's an underrated actress, and I want to see her with an Oscar nomination. I think she'll get it. Nicole Kidman for Lion. She's sort of one that's been steady for a long time. Lion has sort of been on the uprise. It's had its ups and downs throughout the last couple of months, but Nicole Kidman has always kind of remained up on those lists. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I do believe she will get a nomination. Michelle Williams for Manchester by the Sea is another one of my picks. She's great in the movie, and while she doesn't appear all that often, she is a very Academy choice performance, if that makes sense. Like, if you look back at the rest of the Academy's picks, not only the past couple of years, but just overall ever, performances like Michelle Williams in Manchester by the Sea, they seem to always show up, and I think that's going to be a theme followed. So, coming down to the 5th nomination, this was the one that was harder to predict because I think those 4 are kind of genuinely lock-ins. Maybe there's room for a surprise there, but I don't really see it happening. And it came down to 2 for me. 2 that I was trying to figure out who could take that 5th spot. One was Octavia Spencer for Hidden Figures, and one was Greta Gerwig for 20th Century Women. And this was a hard choice because both films are completely about women. Hidden Figures is about the women behind all the mathematic planning of the NASA launch, I believe the moon launch it was, and 20th Century Women is about women in the 20th century. So another big controversy within the Oscars has been, are there enough female-driven films being nominated for things? And this became a hard one to choose. I haven't seen either of the films. I don't know if I'll probably see 20th Century Women. I don't have a huge interest in seeing Hidden Figures, but I'm sure I will. And so, overall, I ended up picking Greta Gerwig because Hidden Figures is one of those movies I see being nominated for the Golden Globes and maybe some SAGs, but I don't see it showing up anywhere at the Oscars. The same thing, the same situation goes for Florence Foster Jenkins for me. I do not see that movie showing anywhere up in the Oscars. You won't see that anywhere in my predictions, and that's what sort of overall kicked me to pick Greta Gerwig. So those are my Best Supporting Actress picks. Best Supporting Actor, in my opinion, is a much more tight race in terms of the nominations. I think there are a lot of loose picks and a lot of room for people to sneak in and kind of surprise us. I think there are a couple of lock-ins, though, so I'll start with those. I'm sorry, I don't know. Mahershala Ali for Moonlight. I'm actually a big fan of his. I knew who he was going into Moonlight. I really like him in House of Cards. He has a great performance in that show. And he's the predicted favorite and to win even. And while I really liked him in the movie, he never totally blew me away or, like I said, stole the show. I think when he's on screen, it's kind of taken by the kid, and I really loved his performance, and I do think he will be nominated, but I don't see him winning, and I think if he does, it will be an Academy's diversity choice. I thought he was great, but I did not see an Oscar caliber performance coming out of him. The other one that I have was Dev Patel for Lion. Like I said, I haven't seen Lion, but I've seen the trailers, and I've seen footage for Lion, and it's very surprising to me that Dev Patel is campaigning for supporting actor. I figured he'd be going lead actor, but I think with a lead actor he would be a lot harder to sneak in, and I think with a supporting actor it would be a very solid bet for him to get a nomination. So I threw him in there. I think he will take a nomination. Will he win? I don't see that happening. My other pick is Jeff Bridges for Hell or High Water, and this may be interchangeable with Ben Foster. Both of them have sort of popped up in different award shows, but Jeff Bridges has sort of always come out to be the favorite thus far. Hell or High Water is a movie that has been over time progressively on the rise for award season buzz, which I love. I loved that movie. It's going to be in my top 10 favorite movies of 2016 by a long shot. It'll be like top 5. I loved that movie, and I'm really excited to be seeing it get all these nominations, and I think Jeff Bridges is definitely going to take a nomination, or maybe Ben Foster, but I'm sticking with Jeff Bridges. Lucas Hedges for Manchester by the Sea is another pick I made. This is more of a risky pick for me. He hasn't really shown up anywhere in terms of a nomination, but I think he could be the real kicker. This was really his breakout performance. He's excellent in the movie. He really came out of nowhere and stands his own against Casey Affleck and Michelle Williams and Kyle Chandler. So I think there's definitely potential for him to be nominated. And my last pick was Michael Shannon for Nocturnal Animals. I think this is more of a risky choice, especially with Aaron Taylor Johnson actually taking the nomination at the Golden Globes, which was very surprising to me. However, this is another knowing the Academy's previous choices and the performances they like to pick. Specifically, Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon is an Oscar nominee for his performance in Revolutionary Road, the Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet one that isn't Titanic. And he wasn't nominated for a Golden Globe, for a BAFTA. I don't really think for anything for that movie, but still popped up. And I see that happening again with him. I feel like he is that kind of actor who will get nominated one time for a performance he has and really not show up anywhere else. That sort of happened with 99 Homes as well. He popped up at the Golden Globes but didn't get an Oscar nomination. I don't even think he got a BAFTA nomination. So I see that happening again with this movie. Could be wrong, but like I said, this is a relatively loose category. Best Leading Actress was a little bit easier to predict, in my opinion. I think there are a few that I have set in stone to be nominated, and then a few loose spots, but I think this is up there as one of the... This will probably be very much like what we end up seeing. So in terms of ones that I actually would for sure have thrown in there, this is more towards the bottom of for sure, but Ruth Negga for Loving. I don't know how to say that, and I really hope I'm not saying that wrong for obvious reasons. I did not see Loving. I really wanted to, but Loving has been one, especially with the two lead performances of Joel Edgerton and Ruth Negga. For just throughout the entirety, since probably around August, they've been like top tier contenders to be nominated, and I've never really seen them drop off, especially her. Joel Edgerton has failed to show up a couple of times, but she has seemed to show up relatively consistently, and so I still have her as a choice to be nominated. I think she will show up, and despite having me not seen the movie, Loving is absolutely an Oscar choice movie. Is it Oscar bait? I don't know. I haven't seen it. It could be. Although Jeff Nichols, the guy that directed that, doesn't strike me as an Oscar bait kind of director. He took on Midnight Special earlier this year, which I really enjoyed, so I don't know if it was Oscar bait. Unfortunately, I didn't get around to it, but I do think she'll secure a nomination. Natalie Portman for Jackie. I just saw this last night, and she is a leading actress. She takes that movie. That entire film belongs to her, except for a couple of moments that I think might be taken by John Hurt. But that's the only time I think she ever drops to maybe like a not, this is my movie. I think she is a very strong contender to win. I think I would put her in second place right now. I think there is absolutely no doubt she will get a nomination, and it'll be a huge snub if she doesn't land one. And the one I have at number one right now to win, but like I said, this isn't my winner predictions. I'm just sort of throwing out there what I would think would win, is Emma Stone for La La Land. I haven't talked about this much, but I'm in love with La La Land. I loved that movie to the fullest extent. I think it's the best movie I've seen in years. I've already seen it twice, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to sweep. I think it's probably going to take picture. It could take actress. It could take screenplay. It's probably going to take directing. I think it's going to be everywhere, and I think it's going to be winning awards left and right. I think Emma Stone is 100% going to be nominated, and she has a very fair shot of winning. So this came down to the two that I wasn't 100% on. I think one of them has sort of become more sure for me, and that's Annette Bening for 20th Century Women. Sort of for the same reasons I talked about earlier. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie yet, and I don't know how great she is, but I know she's a great actor in things, or an actress in things like American Beauty. She's amazing, and I believe that they're going to be looking for a lot more overall female-driven films to put into their nomination categories. Even in this category alone, you have 20th Century Women, you have Jackie, and the one I'm about to get into for my last choice, which was a bit harder to pick. This was Rocky, and as much as I wanted to pick Amy Adams for Arrival, as much as I wanted to throw her in there, as much as I loved that movie, it has been on the decline in terms of Oscar buzz. I think the hype for it since its release has died down significantly. It hasn't shown up as much as I hoped it would in terms of awards, and for some reason I just have this gut feeling that Amy Adams isn't going to take a nomination. I haven't seen this movie, but it's been popping up a lot. I've seen the name a lot, and I'm going with Isabelle Huppert for Elle, I believe is how you say her name. I think that they're going to be looking for some foreign nominations to put in there. They've done that with Marion Cotillard. They did that 2 years ago. I believe it's called 2 Days, One Night or something like that, and no one had heard of it. I think that could be another situation here, but a lot more people have heard of Elle. It's got a lot more buzz. Those are my predictions for leading actress. A couple of them are shaky, but I think that's one where at least 2 or 3 of the nominations are, you're going to see these guys at the Oscars. Best Leading Actor is another sort of shaky category, and I've been saying that a lot because it's true. There's a lot of things that could happen, but there are a lot of rooms for surprises, and I actually have a big risk in this one. I'm going to touch on that last. Let me talk about the two that I think are absolute nominations, and I think are really competing to win right now. The first one being Casey Affleck from Manchester by the Sea. Casey Affleck is a man sort of known for the same old shtick. He sort of does the same role over and over again, but he does it really well. This time he sort of takes that same role, but elevates it to a completely new height. He goes way more into depth with it. He has way more development as a character and way more just overall inside him as a character. And he portrays, mainly some people will see him as this guy, but there's so much more to him than that, and Casey Affleck sort of portrays that hidden emotion behind him, and he does it spectacularly. I think he is the favorite to win right now, but if I did see one person coming up, stealing that mantle from him, it would be Denzel Washington for Fences. You know the Academy loves Denzel. I mean, I love Denzel too. He has 2 Oscars for Glory and Training Day. I thought he was great in Training Day, but I think that was kind of a shaky win for him. I thought Glory, like, he's had much more compelling performances in my opinion. Like Malcolm X was something that was just for him. I was blown away by his performance in that. But with like the whole controversy, I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm saying he was great. Because of the whole controversy going on, he could very well rise to the top and take that Oscar. And I'm not saying I'd be unhappy if that happened. I love Denzel, and I want to see him take an Oscar. But Casey Affleck, having seen both of those movies, I would lean more towards him. So in terms of the other nominations, I'm sticking with Joel Edgerton for Loving. He showed up at the Golden Globes, and I think he's a shakier pick. But like I said, that is a very Oscar movie. Loving is a very Oscar movie. And like I said, he sort of remains steady despite not showing up at a couple of shows, but I'm sticking with my guns with Joel Edgerton. Ryan Gosling for La La Land. This is one that I really hope happens. I think it will, but I'm not 100% confident that it will. I think he did a really great job. I think we saw a side of Ryan Gosling we haven't really seen before, and I do think the Academy is going to give him some recognition for that. And this is my surprise pick. This is the one that I really went back and forth on. And I want it to happen so bad. And I'm starting to get the feeling it's going to. I'm going with Viggo Mortensen for Captain Fantastic. I saw that movie way back. I think it was a summer release, and I loved it. I loved him in it. He runs that show because behind him is that entire family who's all great, but they totally fall apart without Viggo Mortensen's performance at the top. And I think he's going to show up, and I think that's going to be a big surprise, and I'm sticking with my guns with Viggo Mortensen. Best Director, I think this is sort of another set-in-stone kind of type category with a couple of loose ends. Damien Chazelle for La La Land, I think there's absolutely no doubt there whatsoever. And if he doesn't win, I'll be upset. His directing in La La Land is astonishing. It's a style of filmmaking we haven't seen in years. And I think he's absolutely going to be awarded for it. And if he doesn't, that is genuinely a shame. Barry Jenkins for Moonlight. Barry Jenkins keeps a very consistent, interesting tone throughout the entirety of Moonlight. I think he does a really interesting thing with this directing. He really goes in a different direction with this film than like you would just normally see. It's a very Oscar-y type directing held film that I think is absolutely going to show up. Denzel Washington again for Fences, I think is a whole nother situation. That might be more of a controversy one. I think that's going to be, the Academy's trying to show diversity, they're going to throw Denzel Washington in there for directing Fences, because the directing isn't all that much in Fences. I think it's more about the performances and the writing, but I think given the chance to nominate an African-American man for not only leading actor, but for directing, the Academy is going to seize that opportunity, and I think he'll be nominated for directing. Kenneth Lonergan for Manchester by the Sea, another situation where Kenneth Lonergan takes a seemingly normal story and puts it to the big screen as something magical and something crazy and something that you just feel pleasured to see, and I think he's going to get awarded for that, and I think he absolutely should. My last nomination is another one I went back and forth on, but this is another one. As much as I want to throw Denis Villeneuve in there for Arrival, as much as I want to do it, and as much as I think he deserves it, that movie has been on the decline. It hasn't shown up as much as I hoped it would, and so I put Martin Scorsese in there for Silence. That looks like another very directed-led film, as opposed to something like the screenplay or things like that. It looks beautiful, it looks meaningful, and I think they're going to give Scorsese a nomination for that, which is awesome because he hasn't shown up since Wolf of Wall Street, and I'm very excited to see another film by him back on the screen. Finally, we arrive at Best Picture. I went with 8 nominations this time because I'm tired of picking 10, and honestly, I couldn't. There are so many nominations, I found it to be very difficult to pick 10. Also, I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for not picking Hacksaw Ridge for anything. It's not in this. I don't see it happening. I don't see, and this, I haven't seen the movie. And again, this is me talking about, I think, what the Academy will do, not what it should do. in a time where they are trying to be diverse, awarding a movie directed by Mel Gibson is risky. I think that's the same reason they're not awarding Birth of a Nation anything. And again, I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's any good. I've been told, I've seen some reviews saying it's amazing. I've seen some saying it's not good. So I don't know, but I think awarding something like Hacksaw Ridge a nomination could be risky. I don't see it happening, and I feel bad because I want Andrew Garfield to be nominated for an Oscar. It was a huge snub when he wasn't for Social Network. I digress. I'm getting off topic. Best Picture. I stuck with Arrival. I think Arrival is going to be one of those movies that shows up for Best Picture that doesn't really get nominated for much else. I think you see that a lot of the times, and the Academy still likes to say, you know, maybe this thing didn't top everything else, but it's still overall a great movie, and we're going to throw it in our top 8. I see Arrival getting nominated. I see it as being that type of movie. There always seems to be kind of that sci-fi type movie thrown into Best Picture. It's previously been like The Martian and Gravity and things like that, and I do see Arrival taking a Best Picture nomination. Fences is another one. That's a huge diversity pick, and I think that's actually towards the top of a lot of people's predictions list. I think that's no debate will be nominated. Hell or High Water, I did throw it in there. Like I said, that's been on the utmost rise, and I think it will be thrown in there, which is really exciting to me. I didn't do screenplay nominations because I didn't really want to get into that, but I think it'll definitely take a screenplay nomination. It could take a supporting actor nomination, and it's just great enough to be in the top 8. La La Land, no doubt in my mind. I don't really have to talk about this one. I think it's the favorite to win. Lion, another one that's sort of been sturdy throughout award season that I had a lack of faith in when I first heard about it, and then I saw the trailer for it, and it's an Oscar movie. It is. It's an Academy-picked film that I think is going to show up in a lot of different places. Manchester by the Sea, another kind of obvious choice that's always been up there. I think that's definitely a major pick to be for Best Picture, and just like a lot of other categories. Director, performances, screenplay. That's a big movie this year, and it has been since the beginning of people making predictions, and I think that's just no doubt in my mind. Moonlight is another one of those. Moonlight is definitely considered one of the best movies of the year. I've seen nothing but great things about the movie, and overall, it's another Oscar movie. It's a story of human nature, and it's going to be thrown in there. And the final choice I made was Silence. I'm actually getting a phone call right now that I'm going to ignore as some shit falls down behind me. Silence, I picked. Scorsese seems to always be able to show up in the picture category, and I think he will do it again. This looks like an excellent film. It looks like an Academy film. I know I sound like a fucking broken record constantly saying that, but I have no doubt that Scorsese is going to come through again this time, whether there are 10 nominations or 8. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my 2017 Oscar nomination predictions. Stay tuned for some more Oscar coverage. I hope to be reacting to the actual Golden Globe show, and then the Oscar nominations themselves and the SAG Awards. Plenty of other coverage coming up, like talking about other shows and the Academy's overall picks. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below, what you would have picked. I'm very interested to hear. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.